Hello. Some of you guys have asked me to talk a little bit about how exactly I did my Europe trip, what my plan was, where I went, and all that kind of thing. And so I'm gonna give you guys a little rundown of how to travel in Europe for 8 weeks, Sonora style. I basically came up with the plan for my Europe trip one morning before work when I was still living in Portland. Wow, that's super crooked. So I woke up one morning in Portland and decided that I really wanted to travel. And the place that I wanted to travel the most was Scotland, just because I had always had this interest in Scotland ever since hearing stories and folklore. I think I had like a cassette tape of 14 Scottish folktales or something like that, and I thought it was so cool, and every single photo that I had seen of Scotland was so breathtaking and so beautiful. And so when I thought of Europe, that was the place that I wanted to go the most. First of all, I thought that I was gonna go to Scotland on my own, and then I asked my friend Tiger Lily, I texted her and I said, hey, you wanna hike the Highland Way in Scotland with me? 2 months later, we bought tickets and suddenly had this plan to hike the Highland Way. The Highland trip was gonna be only 2 weeks, and then she had to fly home, and I was gonna continue on traveling on my own for an undetermined amount of time. When I bought my ticket to Europe, it was a one-way ticket, and that was pretty much the extent of the plan. Finally, the day came and me and Lily went up to Seattle, got on the plane, flew to London, and arrived at the customs stop in London, and they began to ask us questions. They said, so where exactly are you going? How much money do you have? What are you going to be doing? What address is your contact over here? And that was when we realized that we had basically no idea what we were doing. Our plan at that moment was to get from London to this town called Fort Williams, the Highlands of Scotland, and that was it. That was the entire plan. One-way ticket, the name of a trail that we wanted to hike. And so that's how, on my first day in Europe, me and Tiger Lily ended up wandering lost around London with our giant backpacks on for about 3 hours before finally finding a hotel. And that kind of set the tone for our entire trip. We basically just winged it the whole time. We spent a lot of time in Starbucks those first 2 weeks trying to figure out where we were sleeping that night or how we were getting to where we were trying to go the next day. If I had to recommend a way to travel, it would be a happy medium, because you don't want to travel with too many plans, but you also want to have enough of a plan that you don't have to end up in a town at sunset with nowhere to stay, no contact, nothing like that, which happened to us a couple times. Some good adventures came out of those moments, and also some pretty spooky instances. So after 2 weeks, Lily flew back to the States and I stayed in Europe. We were in the airport in Dublin, Ireland, and Lily got on her plane, and I was sitting there thinking, I am completely alone. There's no one else in this entire country that I know. That moment, it felt like the moment before you jump off a cliff into a river, where you know you're gonna be okay, but you're also completely terrified. So after that, I spent the next 5 weeks traveling. And so here I have to specify, because I wasn't really alone. I was traveling alone, but I was meeting people, making friends with people. I had another friend named Sam Gosnell who I met up with in the Czech Republic and traveled with him for 4 or 5 days down through Eastern Europe, and then I met up with these people in Wales who I had connected with over Instagram randomly, and so I just showed up there. And the thing about traveling alone is you are only really alone when you are moving in between places. For me, at least, once I was at a place, I would talk to someone, or I would strike up a conversation, and then suddenly you're not alone anymore. Even if it's just sitting at a bus station in Brussels at 1 in the morning because your bus is delayed and finding the only other person who speaks English and having a conversation with them for 20 minutes, you're alone, but there's always friends that you can make if you just reach out and talk to them, and there's always people who can give you advice or give you help or point you in the right direction if you just ask for it. One of the things that I was most nervous about traveling alone was the fact that I would be by myself in these foreign countries as a girl. I have been whistled at more times than I can count. I have had people shout rude comments at me from cars and just, you know. And so the thought of going through that while I was 3,000 miles away from anyone that I knew was pretty scary, and I didn't really know how I would handle a situation like that if it came up. But really, there were only a couple times when weird men tried to be weird with me. Like, there's this one drunk guy at a train station the day before Lily left, and he was like, ended up like grabbing my hair and like trying to touch my face and all this weird stuff, and he was just really drunk and really sad and I don't know, being weird. I wrote a poem about it and then moved on. It happens. But most of my other experiences were completely fine. Most people were just nice and friendly, and I found it pretty surprising that I encountered as little scary situations in that manner as I did, because that was the thing that I was the most worried about traveling solo through Europe, and it was actually the least of my worries. So my advice for anyone who's thinking of traveling Europe alone or with friends or anything like that, my advice would be do it. It is way less scary than you think it's going to be. I went into Europe with 10.5% of a plan, and so many great things happened. Every time I tried to plan something out, it ended up not really working, but something else and something better would come. So I would have a general idea of where you're going, where you're staying, who you're staying with if you're gonna be staying places with people, and then just go. Just wing it sometimes. Take the side roads, get lost, walk up into the mountains, find random trails that go up through the canyons in the Highlands of Scotland, or climb random rocks in the middle of Salzburg in Austria. And definitely my biggest tip would be talk to people. Talk to the locals, ask them where it's good to eat, where it's good to explore, what trails are good. Strike up conversations with people at bus stations. Make friends, because the places that I went were amazing, but it's the people that I met that made the trip so life-changing and fantastic. You just gotta let go of that internal fear and know that you're gonna be tired and you're gonna be cold and you're gonna be stressed out at some points, and you're not gonna know what you're doing sometimes, and that is okay, because you will figure it out. Even when it sucks and when you're hungry and you forgot to get food, so all you have is granola, and you're 5 miles away from the nearest town staying at a campground, and it's raining and you've been wearing your rain clothes for 4 days straight, even then it's awesome. Just go there, get out, do it. I didn't have any idea what I was doing, so I guess it's not really pro tips, but fellow traveler tips from someone who figured it out along the way. Because in the end, it's those unplanned moments, the unexpected adventures, the places you find yourself, the things you find yourself doing that you never expected to do, the friends you make along the way. Those are the things that make it worth it. Those are the things that keep us traveling. Those are the things that stay in your mind long after you've come home. Those are the things that make you want to leave again. So you just gotta go do it. Wing it a little bit, plan a little bit, just get on that plane and leave.